And look how fast we are back this time. This is getting good this evening.
Voila.
So now I am here with a very special lady tonight, Jeri Ellsworth. And Jeri, just tell me about yourself.
Well, I'm a self-taught electrical engineer. I'm currently working at Valve Software these days, which is a video game company, helping them get their hardware R&D department up and going, which has been a lot of fun. Been doing that the last about 8 months to a year.
Now, can you tell us what you're working on at all?
Sure, there's a few things that are public. So there's a lot of people could imagine the products that Valve would work on, being a video game company, and then they have announced that they're working on Linux. So they're moving Steam over to Linux. And then stuff that I'm working directly on is wearable computers. And then some nearer term projects too, some stuff that you'd probably see in about a year.
So what, I mean, you know, as someone that isn't quite at the tech level as you, tell me about the things, and go ahead and get tech. Tell me about the things that you enjoy the most about what you do.
Oh, I love creating things constantly. You know, it's really fun working on pinball machines and trying to build custom pinball machines, and working for Valve on game apparatus. You know, you can be very creative, and yeah, it's hard to explain, but it's that creativity. I wouldn't be happy doing the same thing over and over again, designing the same chip over and over.
How many people at Valve are in your division, so to speak, that you work with on a day-to-day basis?
So we started, I was the first hardware hire, and it's been kind of slow going because the way Valve's organized, there's no management at all. It's a flat organization, and you have to get the right kind of people that can work independently of management and have to be good communicators. So currently I think there's probably about 25 people like in close proximity to what we're doing in hardware. There's less hardware folks. We're actively hiring, you know, electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, industrial design, and stuff like that.
Now, a lot of people around here know of Kaylee George, who's an excellent pinball player. I was curious, he works at Valve. Do you work with him?
I do, yeah, and there's a lot of Valvers here. I don't see Kaylee very much. He's like 4 floors away, but you know, he comes down and visits my pinball machines that I put in the I'm on the 4th floor, and I've been slowly taking over the entire floor with pinball and arcade machines. So a lot of pinball and arcade fanatics there. There's a lot of folks at the show from Valve. Gary's here, Gary McTaggart, and Tanya Kleiss. Those guys are working directly with me.
Now, a lot of people from out of state may not know where Valve is, Bellevue, Washington. And Bellevue around here is kind of becoming a new mini city, you know, the way I kind of look at it. What do you think of Bellevue?
I don't know, it's pretty dull, actually. I'm kind of in this limbo state right now. I haven't found a place that can take all my machines and equipment. So I still have a place down in Portland with tons of pinball machines and electron microscopes and stuff sitting down in there. And I have a little place up here that I'm crashing at until I can find a huge workshop. Downtown Bellevue, it's kind of weird. It's like, it's a very sterile, like planned out city.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a shopping mall.
Well, there's kind of one guy that kind of runs most of the town, Kemper Freeman. He's invested a lot in that town.
Oh, really?
So.
I thought you were going to say Bill Gates or something.
No.
Everywhere I look, there's Microsoft buildings.
No, Kemper owns the mall and owns a lot of the property. I mean, he's kind of built Bellevue.
Ah, makes sense why it's kind of homogeneous looking up there.
And eventually they're going to get transit in there and all that. You know, there's a lot of change in Bellevue.
Yeah, yeah. It's not too bad overall. I mean, the people I work with makes it worthwhile. I wouldn't choose Bellevue otherwise.
I mean, it's amazing to me because when I'm down there, a lot of times I've walked and think there's where some of the biggest games I've played in my life are made, right there.
Oh.
Valve.
It's crazy going through there. I wasn't much of a PC video game player, and just walking through the halls in like such a unique organization like that, there's just constantly you see people playing games because they're constantly testing the next game or some kind of modification to some older game. And then, you know, people are constantly moving their desks around too. So you might go walk past the Portal guys, and there'll be like a whole group of people, and then all of a sudden a week later you'll see a bunch of those people had moved off, and now they're working on some Left 4 Dead variant. And
so a lot of change then.
Yeah, it's cool. So Yeah, and the organization, it's cool because they make these big cabals, these big open rooms, and all the desks are on wheels. So, like at any given time, people will just wheel their desk up to another group and, you know, collaborate and then wheel away and go work on some other projects. So it can be actually kind of hard to find people. It's like if Kaylee moved or something, it could take me like 10, 15 minutes to wander around the building and figure out where he went.
Okay, I have a heavy question for you. So I have two boys that are basically about ready to get into gaming. One's about 6 years old, one's about 3. So I look at this next wave of consoles as the consoles they are going to always remember as they grow older, because, you know, like I remember the Atari when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So I'd like to know your opinions on the next generation, whatever you know about what Sony's doing, Microsoft, obviously the Wii U we know is coming later this year, but tell me, what do you know about what are we going to see and whatever these companies are going to do?
I don't really know much, or I can't even say much about the next generation of consoles, sadly.
I'm fine with your opinion.
Oh, my opinion? The Wii U looks kind of interesting. We were very skeptical of it at first, just the rumors of it, but some folks came back from E3 and they kind of liked the gameplay element of, you know, they have some control schemes on an LCD and then you can maneuver around and have independent views. I did hear someone say it was kind of a contrived set of games, but it was kind of interesting. So it should be kind of cool to see if Nintendo can pull off another Nintendo Wii kind of thing. You know, I not being part of the video game industry really back when the Nintendo Wii came out, I looked at it and I've heard people thought it was kind of a joke at first, like this weird thing you're like swinging a motion controller at tennis balls or whatever. And it kind of seems like the same kind of thing is happening with the Wii U or whatever they're calling it. So maybe they'll pull it off again.
Do you think Sony and Microsoft are just going to try to give us more power, more, you know, maybe just 1080p graphics, but no other type of innovation?
Yeah, I really can't say. I mean, yeah. I personally, I haven't seen any of the next gen hardware myself, but anything I've heard, I don't think I can talk about.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm sure, certainly they're going to give you more power. I mean, they're just going to take Moore's law and try to apply that. But
right.
Yeah.
Okay. How many pinball machines at this point in arcade games do you own?
I have about 80 to 90 pinball machines. I've kind of lost track. And then probably have 10-ish arcade games. At one point I had a lot more arcade games, but then I really, really like pinball a lot more, so I started like coring out my arcade collection. So my arcade collection's just down to vector games, so I have like the Asteroids and Tempest and Asteroids Deluxe and, you know, those kinds of games, and some of the classics like Miss Pac and Donkey Kong.
So out of that, how many percentage do you operate versus have at your home?
So as of probably 6 months ago, we had about 50 out. I have a friend that we ran a business in Portland operating pinball machines. And then when zero arcade games. And then I moved to Seattle to do this valve project. And so we've been slowly reducing our number of pinball machines on location because it's just, pinball machines break so often, it's just too much work for one person to handle.
Right.
Which is, it's kind of sad. I mean, Portland there was really awesome, like so many pinball machines.
Is that a challenge now that you're up here?
Yeah, I didn't go down to Portland even once this month, and I think I was only down there 4 days last month. So it's just, I kind of go down there, scoop up a bunch of pinball machines, bring them up to Seattle, stash them, and wherever I can find places in Valve, and so...
Well, I'm sure they appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm kind of sad to see the pinball business go, and then in some ways I'm kind of happy too. I mean, it's, you know, pinball players aren't always the nicest when they have like trouble on your machine, so, you know, they get kind of bitchy and gripey, and it's like, I'm sorry it ate your quarter. I'm sorry that the flipper's weak. You know, it kind of gets old after a while.
Right, right. I'm sure you have to learn like anything. Good customer service. Put on a smile. Be friendly. You know, even when they're complaining.
And it was just more of a passion of mine anyway. I mean, I make more money doing electrical engineering than the pinball business. Although, I was very surprised that there was quite a bit of money in operating pinball machines if you keep them up and running really nicely. It was a big chunk of change.
I mean, I still think we're seeing more little arcades pop up, you know, games in places. Do you have any advice for anyone who might think about even just trying to take some of the games they own and put them somewhere and see if they can earn some income, even just to help them buy more games? Do you have any advice on what things they might not have thought of about actually putting games out there?
Yeah, so there's a few things that we learned. So Trish was my friend that helped me on the pinball business. We found that, like, if you're going to place pinball machines, it's good to place like 4 or 5 pinball machines. You always should have a machine that's very easy to play. So beginners are attracted to these easy, long ball time ones, but the more advanced players eventually kind of get bored with those. So an example of that might be modern Stern machines are pretty easy overall. So like a Lord of the Rings or Pirates of the Caribbean or something like that. And then you always want to have a hardcore game, something that'll just chew you up and spit you out, like a Getaway or like a lot of Steve Ritchie games. So keep one of those there. And then something like at least some kind of weird, quirky game too. So the more diverse you can make these games, like across the entire spectrum, the more chance you'll get someone to at least drop a quarter in. And then when they drop a quarter in one, it seems like they'll just go down the line. And if they're all quite different, eventually you'll get them hooked on one. So we saw locations where we started off with maybe 2 or 3 machines, and then pretty soon the bar owner or the donut shop or whatever, like, hey, can you bring a couple more machines on? And people are just lined up to play these things, and it just seemed to scale.
Now, what about things like taxes and insurance?
Yeah, well, we just kind of slid under the radar on that. In Portland, there was you're supposed to get tags on it, but we looked at the law or the requirements for the little tags, and it said something like, you know, if you found not to have up-to-date tags, they warn you. And then the second thing, if you don't get it fixed within like a month, then they put some little sticker over your coin slot. And then if you don't get it fixed after a couple months or a month after that, then they seize the machine. So it seemed like, you know, whatever. I don't really worry about it. And no one in Portland did. You know, it's probably, you should check with your local. You just kind of look around, I suppose, and see what other people are doing.
Yeah, that's good advice. Thanks.
Yeah. We always operated our machines 50-50, and the way we always pitched it to the bar is like, you know, we're not going to do any kind of contracts with you. If you hate us, just tell us to get lost. We're going to split the money straight down the middle. You pay for electricity, we pay for broken flippers and all the parts, and let's just keep it simple. And that made it really easy.
And do you padlock the coin box and then you count the money together every time you go in, or?
Well, when we first started, we were really paranoid about that. We were counting the money like right on site, and we're like, you know, so they could see us doing it. It was very time consuming, and eventually we just like, you know, do you mind if we take it and count it offline? And everyone was okay with that. So we were always very, you know, upfront and honest about it, but we had no problem taking the money off site and then just bringing them a huge bag of money later. You know, some of the bar owners, it's so funny. I mean, you know, they were taking the money under the table. It's like, you know, one of them, it's like every time we'd bring the money in, they're like, all right, I'm getting a plasma TV, and say cash. So, you know, maybe it's not the most legit thing, but that's kind of how it played out.
No, that's. I mean, but what you're basically getting is that trust obviously helps any relationship and saves time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the bar owners really appreciate it. It's cool because people hang out and get drinks, and yeah. So if you want to dabble in this, I'd recommend doing it, and find coin mechs that let Canadian quarters fall through. That's the trick around here. I don't know what it is about Canadian quarters, but well, I know what it is. They're magnetic, or they're made out of steel. So there's magnets in a lot of these coin mechs, and you drop them down, they stick to the magnet. It's supposed to reject slugs, and problem is they drop one in, and then they drop another quarter behind it, and then it completely jams the coin mech.
All those things.
Your machine is making like $10 an hour or something like that in a good bar on a good night, and then all of a sudden both coin slots jam up, and then it's costly for you, and the players get frustrated, and so it's just worth finding these good coin mechs that will allow Canadian quarters to go through.
That's great info. I will ask you one more question, and we'll call it good.
Okay.
Tell me how you decide on like 50 cents a game, 75 cents a game. How do you how do you figure that out?
So we always did older machines like System 11 and older, a quarter, and then we did 50 cents a game and 3 plays for $1 for anything that was dot matrix. That was our thing. Actually, it was weird. We set a precedence for doing that, and then when we tried to change our pricing to just like 50 cents and some other 3 game or whatever it would be, some like $2, you get a bigger break, and everyone got really upset about that. So I don't know how to recommend pricing, because as soon as you do it, then people really get upset when you try to change it. For instance, it started getting really expensive as our fleet of pinball machines started to age. Like a lot of expensive things started breaking, so we're like, maybe it's time that we get out of the 1980s pricing and get more into like what it should be, and it's the reality of it, I guess.
Just one SBA dollar. That's it.
Yeah, I guess.
Well, thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Is there something else you want to say?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of things we learned about operating pinball machines. Dollar bill validators are great. So put those in your machines if you can. Yeah. Touch every mechanical piece on the playfield when you open it up every time, and then do the same thing on the bottom. Like, always do that, and you'll catch like 90% of your breaks early.
That's great. Hello. Fascinating stuff. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, that's about it. Except come down to the, this is the Northwest
Pinball and Arcade Show.
Northwest Pinball and Arcade Show. If not this year, if you're watching this recorded, come down next year or the year after, because this is awesome. There's hundreds of pinball machines and arcade machines and weird novelty machines on free play.
I mean, where else can you find a Dragon's Lair, a Dragon's Lair 2, and a Space Ace sitting next to each other?
What was the name of the guy in Space Ace? Duke Daring or something? Or
well, Dirk the Daring is in Dragon's Lair. Space Ace, it's Ace.
Ace, okay. Yeah, now it's taking me back to like 1985 or so, when I was going to Chuck E. Cheese and like staring at these amazing like video discs.
Oh, yeah.
So folks should come down, especially if you're in Seattle. It's a quick trip. Come down.
There's over 300 games here. Something for everyone. Stuff that might totally bring back a memory.
And then all the events are real. I enjoy going to the talks, because you get the game designers. Was it Doug Watson, John Papaduke, Eugene Jarvis, Jersey Jack, Lindsay Rupert, Rick something.
Lindsay Rupertus, Rick Bartlett. Yep. We have a great lineup.
Down there.
Saturday is going to be a long day with a ton of great seminars. So if you can't be here, tune in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right. We're done.